Good morning. My name is Robert Wilson, and I first want to let you know that for this particular talk, I'm using a podium, a lectern, that was used by our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, approximately 60 years ago. So I hope this talk will give a little credence to what he teaches us. Last night was fantastic. I'm so appreciative of each and every single one of you for what you did last night. And when I left last night, I was so filled with excitement and anxiety that I knew I wasn't going to sleep easily. So I stopped off at the 7-Eleven to get a few things. And I was getting ready to check out. And standing there at the counter, and the cashier looked at me a little strangely and said, strip down and face me. I go, strip down and face me? Well, this is exciting, but exactly what does this cashier have in mind? So I said, well, this new form of security perhaps. So I start taking off my belt buckle, and all of a sudden I look at it, and the cashier has this look of disdain on the face. And all of a sudden I realized what that cashier was saying. Wasn't talking to me, he was talking about my credit card. You getting it now? Okay. I want to thank Rhonda for my warm-up this morning. She did a beautiful job. And I'm probably going to follow up on some of the things that Rhonda talked about, because what she talked about was very important, and as you see, it's going to sort of work into my message. And I'm looking forward to that because in the future, perhaps I can see Rhonda and I going on a spiritual path together, a spiritual journey perhaps. There we are, traveling around the country in my Winnebago Bob, and the fabulous Rhonda. I can just see that billing at the different fairgrounds. Service this evening, 7 o'clock, a healing service for everyone. So it'd be kind of fun. I want to tell you about a little story first before I begin today. And it's about a donkey who falls into this well. And he falls into this well, and the farmer is sitting there thinking, well, how am I going to get this donkey out of this well? I'm not sure how to do this. Now, the well wasn't any use, it was dry, and the donkey was an old donkey, so the farmer decided, I'm just going to let that donkey die in there, and we'll just fill the well in. So he called his neighbors over, and the neighbors came with their shovels, and they started throwing dirt into the well. And at first, the donkey was making all these noises, these pitiful noises. But the neighbors continued to throw dirt in, one shovel after the other. Then all of a sudden it became quiet. And no one could understand what was going on. Had the donkey died, perhaps? And the farmer decided, well, I'll just look in to see what was happening. And lo and behold, to the astonishment of the farmer, there was that donkey staring him right in the face. What that donkey had been doing was, as people were shoveling dirt onto his back, he was shaking that off, and it was falling to the ground. And what was he doing? He was stepping up, and a shovelful, shake it off, step up, shake it off, step up. And finally, he got to the top of the well and stepped right out of it. So the idea here is that life's going to throw dirt on you. There's no doubt about that. Our job is to understand how to shake it off and then step out and step out. So today I want to talk to you about overcoming life's problems. At my advanced age, having been retired from the educational field for the past 15 years, I continually get this question, especially from the people that I serve. Knowing that I'm in ministerial school and doing other things, they keep asking me, why are you doing this? Isn't this a lot of work? Do you really enjoy doing this? And I have to admit there are many times sitting there at the computer at 12:30 at night, typing up one of those research papers. Why me? Why am I doing this? Why am I why am I putting myself through all of this stress and all this strain and this pressure? And sometimes I don't have an answer because I do go into those why me's, and I'm sure many of you do also. We ask continuously, why me? Why do I put myself through this? 2 weeks ago, we were all in, or most of us, or many of us, or a few of us, depending on what group we're talking with, went to Florida for our convention. And yes, I spent a few days going to the convention, but most of the time I was at the parks. There are 5 parks in that area, 4 Disney parks and 1 Universal park. And I thought to myself, I might as well take this advantage. I'm not going to get back here probably for a long time. So we bought the 3- and 4-day passes, and off we went after the morning sessions. We went to the parks. Now, the parks are great fun. There's the rides. There's all kinds of entertainment. There's lots of food. But there's also pushing and shoving and getting in line and running and pushing and shoving again. And let's face it, these parks are not meant for older people. They're designed for younger people. So I was asking myself many times, why am I doing this? Why me? Why am I putting myself through this? And I didn't have an answer exactly at that particular time. But I felt that I could take this physical activity. Now, I work out 3 times a week. I do some strenuous exercises. I do stretching 3 times a week. I spend 3 hours in aerobics and 3 hours in Pilates. So I think I'm fairly fit for my age. But you get on these rides and you find something called this little red triangle. And it says, attention, please read before you get on this ride. So here I am at Harry Potter, Universal Studios. And if you've been on the Universal Harry Potter ride, you know that you get in this chair and it takes you up into the air, and you actually feel like you're flying through the air. You're going this way, and you're going this way, and you're going this way. And at one time, you're back here, and your feet are in front of you, over your head. And you go, wow, this is really great, but am I going to make it through? So I get off the ride, and we're standing there to exit, and there's this sign again, little red triangle, and it says, heart defibrillator available. So I'm going, why me? So doing these things, during these rides, doing these exercises, I do ask myself, why me? But I also find that it's important to do these things, to push myself, to go into these different experiences. Another ride that's interesting was the Tower of Terror. Anybody? Tower of Terror? Yes. Fun? Yes. Great. Red triangle. And I had heard about this, and I'd really had some ideas that maybe I wouldn't do this. But then I go, why not? I'm going to live. I'm going to experience this. So up we went. And it takes you up like 4, 5, 6 stories. Then it drops you right back down. And it takes you up a couple more stories, and it drops you right back down. And then the last time, it takes you up like 8 or 9 stories, and it just lets go. You go all the way down. And your heart stops. Your stomach is in your mouth, and you don't know what to do. You get off of that ride, and one more time, big red triangle this time, red triangle, heart defibrillator available. And I go, I'm glad I didn't see that before I got on there. Now, you might be asking yourself, why do I do this? Why more studies? Why more term papers? And why more physical activity? Why me at this age? Why should I be doing this kind of things? What I'm discovering as I become more mature in my experiences is that you have to let go. You have to experience, and you can't let conditions dictate who you are. If you let conditions dictate who you are, then you're letting those conditions run your life. And that's not the way, at least, I want to live. I am not going to let the conditions, many of these conditions put there through race consciousness, through the thoughts of other people, through the media. I'm not going to let those conditions ruin my life. We're not just physical beings here. We are also spiritual beings. So there's a combination here that we have to find, that we have to find for ourselves. And in 1 Timothy, you do find that it is said in Scripture that physical training is of value. Now, it may not be as good as spiritual training, but they are both of value. So what you need to do, what I need to do, and what I do constantly is discover that thing called balance. I want to know how to live in balance. It's not always been easy, because those why me's have come up in my life many times. Some of you may know that when I was a young boy, 4 years old, back in the mid-1940s, I contracted polio. Now, my father had taken us, we lived in upstate New York, over to Canada to get away from the epidemic, the polio epidemic that was sweeping the United States. But it didn't work. All three of us, my siblings, two of them older, came down with polio, as I did. My sister made it through no problem whatsoever. My brother, on the other hand, lost the use of his one leg, and he's paralyzed from it. I did have some problems. I did have some damage done to my right leg. As many of you know, I do limp a little bit. And as a young boy, I couldn't do the same thing that most other young boys could do. I found that I couldn't run like other boys. I couldn't play baseball. I couldn't play basketball. And I kept asking, why me? Why am I doing this? And then I discovered something. I discovered that I could do other things that other boys couldn't do. I could focus on things. I could do other types of things. I had greater stamina than other boys had. I found that I could swim easier and longer. And as a result of that, I began to stop asking why me in the negative, because I was finding that I could do those other things. And I soon became a leader in the youth movement within the in the Methodist Church within the state of New York, and also in the Boy Scouts. So those negative things started becoming positive things. And I stopped asking, why me? Why me? Why was I doing that? I was discovering that the conditions in my life didn't necessarily state what and who I was, that there were other things that made up who this person called Robert was. So what do we mean by spiritual? Well, Ernest Holmes says, by spirituality we mean a constructive atmosphere of goodness, truth, beauty, harmony, and reality. So what does this statement actually mean? It means that if we understand that we are good, that we have goodness, that we have truth, we have beauty, and that we're allowed to reveal that in ourselves, then that's who we're going to be. In the subjectivity, we keep that in our mind of who we are. But in the objectivity, we manifest that. So if I can keep in my mind that there is goodness, there is love, there is truth, then in my objectivity, in my everyday behavior, and what I believe and how I act, I'm going to see the same things. I remember 15 years ago, when I was diagnosed with cancer, that I asked my doctor, why me? Now, I wasn't given very long to live, actually, and I was told to actually make preparation for dying. So I decided at that time that what I would do is to retire from the education field, which I loved, and go into retirement and just sit and relax, because that's what retirement means to most people. So I moved down to Palm Springs home, and there I sat and I relaxed for like 2 months. It didn't work for me. That's not who I was. I wasn't sure about what was happening in my life, but what I knew was that there was something else more I wasn't going to let that condition dictate who I was. I wasn't going to let cancer dictate who and what I was going to do in my life. I made a decision that there was something else. Didn't know what it was yet, but I knew there was something else. So what I did was I joined the church. I joined the Unity Church first, and then I was sent over to the Religious Science Center because the classes at the Unity Church had stopped. So I went over there and I discovered something. I discovered the reason why this goodness was showing up in my life. I was discovering that as a child of God, as each and every single one of us are in this room, and each and every single person in this world is, that we are entitled to goodness. We have that choice if we just allow that goodness to be revealed through us. This is who we are. Yes, I've discovered that principle, that as a child of God, I can live my life in balance. And once I understood that, once that became a part of who I am, this person called Robert, then I decided how I was going to live, and it was going to be done on my terms. And so here I am 15 years later, and I'm still having a great experience. Now, those Disney rides that I referred to earlier, they have their ups and downs. We went up and down, just like roller coasters. And that's going to happen in each and every one of our lives. We have those ups and we have those downs. But we don't have to let those ups and downs dictate who we are. We can allow those experiences to happen, but if we stay in balance, we don't have to go to those places that keep us in those places that we don't want to be. I may not have known many years ago why these things were happening to me, why I was having good things even in the sense when there were bad things happening to me. But now I do know. I know that as that sonship, being part of the integral body of God, that I am entitled to that goodness. So I claim that goodness for myself. 8 years ago, a group of us from the Center for Spiritual Living went to Machu Picchu in Peru and walked the Inca Trail. Now, at that time, it was in my late 60s. And I had a good time going up. It was coming down that was the problem. And I got back to Machu Picchu, and here I had many blisters on my feet, and I had a torn ligament in my leg. Experience wasn't very good, I have to admit that. But when I got home, I recognized something had happened. 14,000 feet above sea level, I had made a decision about my life. I had decided to become a practitioner. And as a result of that, I've had a great time as being a practitioner, as many of you know, and many of you can attest to. So, how do we stay in balance? How do we keep our lives in a balance so that we can appreciate how we're living? First of all, we must remove all those contrary ideas that I spoke of earlier. The song of joy and love and peace are always there. We just have to allow that to be revealed to us. God can't give us love through hate, can't give us peace through confusion, can't give us happiness through misery. You cannot serve God and mammon, says the Gita. You have to do away with all those pairs of those opposites. You can't move and walk east and move and walk west at the same time. You have to stay in balance. To experience goodness, you have to identify yourself with goodness. To experience balance, we all have to identify ourselves with balance. So is there such a thing as age? Are we physically restricted? Is there such a thing as stress? Yeah, probably they do exist. But only if you let these things exist. Only if you allow those things to come into your consciousness and be part of who you are. And like Rhonda was talking about, that monkey wrench, that crowbar can show up anytime. That 2x4 can knock you on your rear end. But you have a choice, and if you keep yourself in balance, you can get out of it. So knowing that you are a child of God, and that only good can come into you if you allow that to happen, I want you to think about changing those thoughts Go to that positive thoughts. Have that positive outlook on life. So like that donkey earlier in our story, you're not going to let those conditions dictate your life. When something is thrown on you, you're going to shake it off and you're going to step up. Life is good. So what I want you to do right now, please, is stand. Please stand. And I want you to affirm with me. God is good. I am an experience that God is having. Only good can come into my experience. And so it is. Namaste. Thank you. I felt good. Right. What I did find was in my talk, I knew where I wanted to go, and I was following my outline fairly well. But there were times that I felt that I wanted to talk a little more about something that I hadn't thought about before, or something that Rhonda had said before that stimulated something in my mind that I wanted to bring out. So sometimes I went a little off to one side or the other, but I felt that I was always stayed on track.